How's it going, guys? Matt here from the Toasty Bros, and I am here with another build video. Now, I went on Newegg and decided to create a build at around $1,000. Now, $1,000 in my opinion is the most you should be spending on a gaming only machine. Now, this machine will also double as a video editing machine. However, it won't be as good as if you went for like an i7 or a higher end processor, as you will see in this video. But this build right here is the top of the line gaming. You can max out 1080p, you can even stretch into 1440p a little bit. Now this PC is going to be marketed at like $991, and just like my sweet spot build, I'm going to show you all some variations you all can change to make this your own and fit the budget that you want to, and tell you all if you want to spend a little bit more you can get this, spend a little bit less you can get this. So without further ado, roll the intro. Alright guys, so we're going to kick this off here with the case. Now the case is a Corsair Carbide Series Spec 01 red LED black case. Now this is a basic tower, but it's made by Corsair, so it's solidly built. For $50, it's a very solid case. If you want to go higher on the case, you might have to cut back on components, but that's something I really don't like to do. So I really rather not cut back on component speed and overall for the actual aesthetic of the build. But if you want to go maybe, let's say $50 over $1,000, maybe like $1,050 or $1,100, you could get a full tower case that would be really sick and make the build look a lot cleaner. I would recommend doing that if I was in the situation where I had this kind of money to spend, but I don't, so this is just my personal opinion. So for the hard drive, we went with 1 terabyte 7200 RPM drive. Now yes, in this situation it will almost be kind of smart to buy a 2 terabyte or even a 4 terabyte drive. It will bump the price up significantly. However, it really is just personal opinion. If you're gonna be playing a lot of games, having a lot of video and stuff, I'd recommend getting a 2 terabyte drive, or just get this and slap another 1 terabyte drive in and deal with like a RAID array or something of that sort. So for right now, this is basically going to do the job. It's a 1 terabyte hard drive for $50. It doesn't really dig into our price that much, so it's something that will do the job for this build. Now for the graphics card is the ever so controversial GTX 970. Now the 970, yes, has had issues with the whole VRAM and not having exactly 4 gigs of VRAM, blah 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 blah, but every single benchmark I've seen, this card is still a great performer and it does a great job at 1080p. It's pretty much equal, if not a little bit better than the 780 back in the last generation of GeForce cards, which is a really solid card. And it at $349, it's at a sweet spot to where I wouldn't spend any more for something, because you're at the point of no return with performance. So for the GTX 970 with Whisper Silent Cooling from EVGA, this card's going to do great things for this build. It'll max out 1080p, it'll even go into 1440p and play most games at that, so I recommend this card for the build. If you really want to go up and maybe boost up the price about $200, you could go with a 980 or a 980 Ti. That will bump it over about $300. However, for this $1,000 build, this is pretty much the best thing that you could get. Now for the power supply, I went ahead and got a pretty solid power supply. The Corsair RMX 750 watt power supply is fully modular and 80 plus gold certified. I didn't want to skimp out on the power supply in this build because we're powering a lot of high quality components, and we really should get a quality power supply for this system. When you're spending $1,000 or so, you really shouldn't cheap out on any of your components. So it's $100 and $79.99 after a mail-in rebate, so which is actually a pretty decent deal. I'd give them that. So this power supply is from Corsair, so it's a high quality power supply, 80 plus gold efficiency, and it's at a very good price. Along with being fully modular, it will clean up your system very nicely. So I recommend this power supply for the build. Now for RAM, so the processor we chose was the i5-6500. Now, the reason we chose the i5-6500 is because it's cheaper than the i7 but performs like an Intel processor does. And being on this socket type, it requires DDR4 RAM. So DDR4 RAM is actually leveled out now after the first release, and it's not much more expensive, if not a little bit cheaper than DDR3. So I could get 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM at 2400 speed for $80 84 bucks, which is actually a really nice deal. You can get it in red, blue, or black. This Vengeance memory is really slick. 16 gigs at $84, it's kind of worth doing. So it's great for gaming, because some games actually, believe it or not, are requesting more than 8 gigs of RAM. And I know it's still kind of not the most easy upgrade to do, because you don't think it's really worth it, but I recommend just throwing 16 in if you can fit it in the budget. So for the motherboard, we decided to get the cheapest motherboard that we really could without sacrificing quality. Now the color scheme on this build is not going to be the prettiest in the world. If you want better color scheme, you're probably going to have to pay a premium to match all the colors and everything, because we got some orange and red mixed in here. It's gonna be like a lava looking build. But LGA 1151 boards are on the high side, so the most expensive one is ranged up to like $500, and this is the cheapest one I could find. So for $117, you're getting an ASRock motherboard, which is a really solid board. ASRock is a great company. They make really solid boards, supports Crossfire. I don't know if it supports SLI though. That's something I'm not really sure about, but it's a very nice board. It will do the job. I assume it supports SLI. I'm just gonna assume that. So if you're really gonna do SLI, I'd look into getting this, look into this board more before you get it, so you know for sure that it will support it. But this is a very nice board for the money, and it looks very clean and supports all the things you need to for this build. Now for the processor, we got the Intel Core i5-6500. Now if you really wanted to jump up and grab a i7, you're going to have to drop a couple more bucks, you know, like $200 or so. But the i5-6500 seems like it's a very solid processor. It has really good built-in graphics, even though you really don't need it. It's basically, it does the job. It's a good gaming processor. You won't really need to be doing any overclocking on it. It's a 6500, so I'm assuming it's locked. I'm not really sure if it is or not. I'd have to look into that. I haven't really looked into the new series Intel. But this processor is very high quality. It's a new processor, supports DDR4. It just is going to do the job. You can do light video editing on it. You can do gaming and basically, you know, do Intel processor type stuff. So I recommend this for the build, but I also recommend if you're doing video editing, you just suck it up and drop the money on the i7-6700K. It's going to be worth it in my opinion. And now to conclude, I had to throw in an SSD for the boot drive, so we basically got the same SSD here, which is also a great value. The Silicon Power S60 is a great value SSD at 120 gigs. For $41, you can't do much better. They actually have a deal if you wanted to drop 114. You could get 3 of these bad boys for $114, put them in a RAID array, and then you have a pretty sick little boot drive right there. It can be really quick. But this is a very nice SSD. It does the job. I love it. I love it in my system. It's improved my overall experience, and I basically say you need an SSD nowadays to be able to have a really, really nice experience. But that's coming from somebody who's had an SSD, moved from having the OS on the hard drive to an SSD, and it's night and day. So I highly recommend you do it. I mean, if you want to skimp out $40, I can't see it in a $1,000 build. Skipping out just to save $40 is kind of just not worth it. So overall, this build comes to a total of $991.92. So there's about a $10 buffer there that you can do. One thing I would recommend that you drop money on for sure is a new cooler. So I would recommend that you get maybe a Hyper 212 Evo, spend the extra $30 on that. Maybe upgrade the GPU if you think you're going to be playing at like Infinity, or if you're going to play maybe 4K, you're going to want to upgrade to a 980. The hard drive can be upgraded to a greater amount, maybe like a 2 terabyte drive. RAM is fine. Upgrade the motherboard if you want to do SLI, because this motherboard may not support it. I haven't looked into that really. But just out of a glance, and I put this together in about like 5 minutes, This build looks really solid, and I feel like if I had the money, I'd get something similar to this. I might go ahead and make the jump to an i7 because that's something that I need for my video editing purposes. But for gaming, an i5 really does the job. So thank you guys again for watching this video. If you haven't already, leave a like and a comment down below, and give me your opinion on this build, and give me some links to some PC part picker builds of you all putting something together for under $1,000 or right at $1,000. I'm kind of curious to see because you could go a lot of ways with this. So this is just my take on it. Be sure to comment below if you haven't already. I just said that. I don't know why I'm repeating myself, but hit the subscribe button. We're getting closer to 4,000 subs, and it's going to be great once we hit there. We have a bunch of cool content coming up for you guys shortly, and I hope you have a wonderful day.